My daughter-in-law screamed, "This is my house," 3 weeks before I evicted her from a home she never owned. The deed was in my purse the whole time. Margaret Helen Crawford, Soleil owner, $475,000 property in San Jose, that my son and his wife thought belonged to them. It didn't. It never did. Can you imagine? 3 years I lived in that house, cooking their dinners, watching their shows, staying out of their way. 3 years of yes, Jennifer, and, of course, Michael, and biting my tongue until it bled. And in the end, my own son looked me in the eyes and said his wife mattered more than his mother. She thought she won that night. She had no idea what was coming. But let me take you back 3 years. Back to when I thought moving in with my son would be my peaceful retirement. Richard, my husband, passed away on a Tuesday. 43 years of marriage. And then just silence. The house we'd raised Michael in suddenly felt like a museum. Every room had a ghost. I was 70 years old, alone for the first time in my adult life, and honestly, I was scared. Michael called me 2 weeks after the funeral. "Mom, come live with us. You raised me by yourself after Dad left. Let me take care of you now." Those words. I replayed them 1,000 times later. Let me take care of you now, like I'd done something to deserve being cared for. Like he actually meant it. Jennifer seemed happy about it. She called me Mom within the first month, hugged me when I arrived with my 2 suitcases and the leather folder I always kept my important documents in. She made the guest room look nice, new curtains, fresh flowers on the nightstand. I thought I'd won the daughter-in-law lottery. Wrong. I sold my family home 6 weeks later. 4 bedrooms in a neighborhood I'd lived in for 30 years. Gone for $380,000. I split the proceeds with Michael. Half went toward their mortgage, half into my savings. I wanted to be fair. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to be wanted. Here's what nobody tells you about living with your adult children. You become a guest in a life you helped create. The first few months were fine, pleasant even. Jennifer and I cooked together. Michael and I watched Jeopardy every night at 7. I stayed in my room when they needed space, helped with dishes, kept the bathroom spotless. But somewhere around month 18, Jennifer started sighing. Little sighs, the kind you barely notice at first. I'd ask her about her day, and she'd exhale like I'd asked her to solve world hunger. I'd offer to help with dinner, and she'd say, "I've got it," in a voice that meant, "I've got it, so stop asking." Then came the kitchen reorganization. I'd made Michael's favorite pot roast one Sunday, the same recipe I'd been making since he was 8 years old. He loved it, ate 2 plates. Jennifer smiled through dinner, but that night I heard her slamming cabinet doors. The next morning, every pot, pan, and dish had been moved. New labels on the shelves. "My system," Jennifer said when I asked about it. "Things work better my way." That was the first time I noticed her emphasis on that word, my. 6 months before everything fell apart, my knitting circle wanted to meet at the house. 8 women I'd known for 20 years. Dorothy, my closest friend, suggested it because I was always driving to everyone else's place. Actually, Jennifer said when I asked, "I'd prefer if you didn't. I need my space to be mine during the week. Mine." Again, Michael gave me one of his looks. The apologetic ones that never turned into actual words. He'd perfected that look over the years, a little shrug, a sympathetic smile, then silence. Always silence. Things accelerated after that. Jennifer started talking over me at dinner, making plans that involved me without asking if I was interested. She'd announce we were going to her mother's for Christmas, and I'd find out from Michael 2 days before. She reorganized my bathroom shelves without telling me. She complained about the smell of my face cream, but I stayed quiet because Michael seemed happy, because I didn't want to cause problems, because I'd already given up my house and half my savings, and where else was I going to go? 3 weeks before the ultimatum, we had a small gathering for Jennifer's birthday. I'd spent the afternoon setting up decorations in the living room, streamers, balloons, a banner that said "Happy Birthday, Jennifer" in gold letters. I thought I was helping. I thought she'd be pleased. She came home from work, dropped her bag on the counter, and stared at the living room like I'd set fire to it. "You did this without asking me." I blinked. "I wanted to surprise you," Michael said. "This is my house." She screamed it. Actually screamed. Her face went red, and her hands clenched into fists, and she looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Michael rushed in from the garage. "Jennifer, calm down. She was just trying to. Stay out of this, Michael." And he did. He stayed out of it. He mumbled something about Jennifer having a stressful week at work and disappeared back into the garage. Left me standing there with streamers in my hand, my heart pounding, my daughter-in-law's spit still visible on the coffee table. I took down the decorations myself. That night, lying in bed, I heard them arguing through the wall. "She acts like she owns the place," Jennifer said. I pressed my pillow over my ears. But I'd heard enough. 2 weeks passed. Jennifer barely spoke to me. When she did, it was clipped sentences and cold eyes. Michael tried to play peacemaker, suggesting I stay in my room during dinner, maybe eat earlier, give Jennifer space to decompress. I was becoming invisible in my own life. The Tuesday it all ended started like any other day. I made coffee, read the news on my phone, stayed out of the kitchen until Jennifer left for work. Michael had been working from home, so I tried to be extra quiet. Around 6 o'clock, I heard the front door slam. Jennifer stormed into the kitchen, where I was washing dishes. Her heels clicked against the tile like bullets. Michael followed behind her, his face pale. "I can't do this anymore." She slammed her purse on the counter. "It's suffocating. I feel like I can't breathe in my own house." I turned off the faucet. My hands were still wet. "Jennifer, if I've done something, you've done plenty." She crossed her arms. 3 years of you being here, always watching, always judging, always in my space. I'm done." Michael put his hand on her shoulder. "Jen, let's talk about this. We've talked about it. For months." She shook her head. "Michael needs to choose. Right now. Tonight." She looked at my son, then at me, then back at him. "It's either you or me, Margaret. He can't have both. What do you think? Was she right to demand that? Or was she just crazy?" Comment below. The kitchen went silent. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock on the wall ticking, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I looked at Michael, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after his father walked out, the man I'd sacrificed for, saved for, believed in. I looked at him and waited for him to say something. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Jennifer is my wife." His voice cracked. "I have to put my marriage first." Something inside me shattered. Not broke, shattered. Like a window hit by a baseball, 1,000 pieces scattering across the floor. Jennifer smiled. It was small and cold and victorious. Good. Then it settled. "Margaret, you can take the week to find somewhere else." I don't know where the words came from, but they came. No need to wait a week. I wiped my hands on the dish towel. "I'll pack tonight." Her smile faltered. Just for a second. She hadn't expected that. I walked to my room on legs that didn't feel like my own. I pulled out the 2 suitcases I'd brought 3 years ago and started folding clothes. Pants, blouses, the cardigan my mother gave me, the framed photo of Richard from our wedding. 4 hours later, everything fit. I grabbed my purse, my phone charger, and the leather folder with my important documents, the one I'd carried from house to house my entire adult life. Deed, birth certificate, marriage license, social security card, all of it. Michael watched me from the hallway. "Mom, you don't have to leave tonight. Jennifer was just upset. We can figure this out." "No." I zipped the last suitcase. "We can't." I walked past him, past Jennifer, who stood in the living room with her arms crossed, past the kitchen where I'd made 1,000 dinners for a son who wouldn't defend me. I loaded my car in the dark. The trunk was full. The back seat was full. My life compressed into a Honda Civic. I backed out of the driveway at 11:47 p.m. In the rearview mirror, I could see them watching from the window. Michael, and Jennifer, husband and wife, relieved. I was 72 years old, alone, driving to a hotel I'd found on my phone. They thought it was over. They thought I was gone. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what nobody knew except me. The house was in my name, Margaret Helen Crawford, sole owner. The deed had never been transferred, not once in 3 years. They'd kicked me out of my own house, and I wasn't going to let that slide. I drove to the extended stay hotel off Highway 101 with shaking hands and a dead phone. Room 237, third floor. The kind of place where business travelers stay during layovers and families book when they're between houses. I sat on the edge of the bed at 1 a.m., surrounded by everything I owned, and tried to remember how to breathe. You ever have one of those nights where your brain just won't stop? I kept replaying Michael's face. The way he wouldn't look at me. The way he said Jennifer is my wife like it was an excuse. Like vows to her erased the fact that I raised him, that I sacrificed for him, that I loved him more than anything in this world. I didn't sleep. Not a minute. Around 3 a.m., I started unpacking. Not because I had anywhere to put things, but because I needed to do something with my hands. I pulled out clothes, toiletries, the photo of Richard, and then I reached for the leather folder. That folder had been with me since 1978. Birth certificates, marriage license, social security cards, tax documents from 20 years ago. And at the very bottom, underneath everything else, a stack of papers I hadn't looked at in years. The deed to the house. My fingers stopped moving. I pulled it out slowly, unfolded it under the yellow lamplight. Read every word like I was seeing it for the first time. Property address, 4892 Willow Creek Drive, San Jose, CA. Owner, Margaret Helen Crawford. Not Michael Crawford, not Jennifer Crawford, not Michael and Margaret Crawford, just me. I read it 3 more times. Then I grabbed my laptop and started searching. California property records. Santa Clara County Assessor. I typed in the address and waited. The screen loaded. Owner of record, Margaret Helen Crawford. Transfer history, none. The house was mine. Legally, completely, 100% mine. For 3 years, I'd been living in a house I owned while my daughter-in-law treated me like an unwanted tenant. For 3 years, Michael talked about eventually putting my name on the deed, his way of pretending the transfer hadn't happened yet. For 3 years, I cooked and cleaned and stayed quiet in my house while Jennifer screamed, "This is my house," in my face. They kicked the homeowner out of her own home. I started laughing, then crying, then both at the same time. The woman in the next room probably thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But somewhere between the tears and the hysterical laughter, something clicked into place. They'd made a mistake. A big one. And I was going to make them pay for it. By 4 a.m., I'd read everything I could find about California eviction law. 30-day notice for month-to-month tenants. Process server delivers the paperwork. If they don't leave, you go to court. The sheriff removes them. The sheriff removes them. I pictured Jennifer's face when a deputy showed up at the door. I pictured her screaming that it was her house while someone in uniform explained that no, actually, it wasn't. Game on. Monday morning, I called every real estate attorney in San Jose. Most couldn't see me for weeks. But Patricia Chen had a cancellation at 2 p.m., and the receptionist said she specialized in property disputes. Her office was in one of those glass towers downtown, 14th floor. When I walked in with my leather folder, she looked at me like she was expecting someone more fragile. Most people see a 2-year-old woman and assume she needs hand-holding. Patricia Chen figured out fast that I didn't. So let me understand this. She spread the deed across her desk. Your son and daughter-in-law have been living in this property for 3 years. The deed was never transferred. And last week, they told you to leave. That's correct. Did they pay rent? They paid. Some. Irregular amounts. Sometimes 1,000, sometimes 1,500. Never consistent. Never with a lease. Patricia nodded slowly. Mrs. Crawford, do you understand what you're asking me to do? This is your son. I understand perfectly. Evicting family members can be complicated, emotionally and legally. I leaned forward. 3 nights ago, my daughter-in-law gave my son an ultimatum. Choose me or her. He chose her. They watched me pack my car at midnight. They stood at the window while I drove away. I paused. I'm not here to talk about emotions. I'm here to get my house back. Patricia studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled. They're essentially squatters, she said. Squatters with your permission, technically, but still squatters. No lease, no consistent payment schedule, no formal agreement. The word felt harsh, but accurate. Here's what we're going to do. She pulled out a legal pad. I'll prepare a 30-day notice to vacate. We'll have it served by a process server Thursday morning. That gives them until mid-month to leave voluntarily. If they don't, we file for unlawful detainer and let the court handle it. How much? $5,000 retainer. Total will probably run 10 to 15, depending on how hard they fight. I wrote the check without hesitating. Thursday morning, I moved from the hotel to a furnished apartment across town. Month to month. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I hung up my clothes, put Richard's photo on the nightstand, and waited. The process server confirmed delivery at 11:47 a.m. Jennifer had answered the door in yoga pants and a tank top, clearly not expecting to deal with anything more complicated than a package. The server said she'd gone pale when she read the first line. I wish I'd been there to see it. Michael called me at 6:23 that evening. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom, what the hell is this? His voice was shaking. We got served papers. They say we have 30 days to vacate. That's correct. This is insane. You can't just, this is our house. No, Michael. It's my house. It's always been my house. Silence. I could hear Jennifer in the background, asking what I was saying. The deed is in my name. It was never transferred. I checked the county records. You've been living in my property for 3 years without a lease. More silence. Then Jennifer grabbed the phone. What kind of mother does this to her own son? Her voice was pure venom. We took you in. We fed you. We gave you a home. You gave me a home? I almost laughed. Jennifer, I paid for that house. With proceeds from my family home and my husband's life insurance. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. You gave me nothing. This is ridiculous. We'll fight this. You're welcome to try. She hung up on me. I didn't mind. You know what surprised me most? How calm I felt. 3 days earlier, I'd been devastated, broken, driving to a hotel at midnight with my whole life in my car. But now I had power. Now I had options. Now I had receipts. The calm lasted about 18 hours. Friday evening, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, Care Agreement, signed, copy. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. It was a document titled Family Care and Property Transfer Agreement. 3 pages of legal-sounding language about how I'd agreed to transfer the house to Michael and Jennifer in exchange for care and housing services. At the bottom was a signature. My signature. Except it wasn't. I've been signing my name the same way for 60 years. The M has a specific loop. The C has a specific flourish. This signature was close enough to fool someone who'd never seen the real thing, but wrong. The loops were off. The spacing was different. It looked like someone had practiced from a photograph. They'd forged my signature. I called Patricia at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, left a voicemail. She called back within an hour. This is fraud, she said after I forwarded the email. Forgery of a legal document. This actually helps us. Helps us? They're panicking. They know they don't have a legal leg to stand on, so they manufactured one. But this document doesn't exist in any official capacity. It was never notarized, never filed, and now they've sent you evidence of their own crime. She paused. Margaret, we may need to file a police report, the police, against my own son. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. Do it. Monday morning, we went to the San Jose Police Department together. Filed a report for forgery and fraud. The officer who took my statement was young, maybe 30, and he kept looking between me and Patricia like he couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. Your daughter-in-law forged your signature on a property document? That's correct. And your son, was he involved? I hesitated. Michael's face flashed in my mind. The apologetic looks, the silence, the way he chose Jennifer without even fighting for me. I don't know who created the document, but they both sent it to me. Patricia filed a motion to expedite the eviction based on the fraud. The judge would see it within the week. That night, someone pounded on my apartment door at 9:47 p.m. I looked through the peephole. Michael and Jennifer, standing in the hallway. She was still wearing her work clothes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't open the door. Mom! Michael's voice was muffled through the wood. Mom, please. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Jennifer stepped closer. You called the police on us. The police! What is wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I laughed. You forged my signature. That's a crime, Jennifer. That's not a misunderstanding. You're too senile to remember signing it. The word hit like a slap. Senile. What did you just say? I said you probably forgot. You're 72 years old, Margaret. Maybe you signed something and don't remember. It happens. I pressed the intercom button on my door panel. Building security? I have 2 people harassing me in the hallway. Unit 412. Jennifer's face through the peephole went white. You wouldn't. I just did. They left before security arrived, but not before Jennifer turned back and said the words that would haunt me for weeks. We'll tell everyone you're mentally unstable. We'll tell everyone you've lost your mind. Good luck fighting us when the whole world thinks you're crazy. I had no idea she meant it literally. 2 hours later, Dorothy called. She'd been scrolling through Facebook before bed when she saw it. Jennifer had posted a long, detailed message about elder abuse in reverse. About how her mother-in-law had turned against the family and was making wild accusations. About how sad it was to watch someone you love slip into cognitive decline. The comments were worse. Former neighbors saying they'd noticed something off about me. Acquaintances speculating about dementia. One woman, someone I'd known from church 20 years ago, wrote, "Dementia can make them so paranoid and mean, praying for your family." They were calling me crazy, publicly, to everyone we knew. Dorothy's voice was tight with anger. Margaret, this is slander. She's making you look like you've lost your mind. I know. What are you going to do? I stared at my phone screen. At the post, with 47 comments, all of them painting me as a confused old woman who'd turned on her loving family. I'm going to prove them wrong. Monday morning, I called Patricia. We needed to document my mental competency. She recommended a geriatric specialist named Dr. Sarah Morrison, who did cognitive assessments for legal cases. The appointment was scheduled for Wednesday, but Jennifer wasn't done. Every day, new posts appeared, new comments, new people expressing concern about my well-being. She'd turned my eviction into a narrative about elder abuse, with herself as the victim. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Dorothy showed up at my apartment Tuesday night with a bottle of wine and a laptop full of screenshots. I've been documenting everything, she said, spreading printouts across my kitchen table. Dates, times, exact wording. If she wants to play the social media game, we'll have evidence for a defamation case. I looked at my friend of 30 years. You're not tired of this? Tired? Dorothy laughed. Margaret, I've been waiting for someone to take that woman down since the day I met her. Her mind is sharp as a tack, and anyone who knows you knows that. She paused. Besides, the knitting circle is already organizing. Organizing what? She smiled. You'll see. Wednesday morning, I sat in Dr. Morrison's office for 3 hours. Memory tests, logic puzzles, word association. She asked me about current events, about my family history, about what I'd eaten for breakfast that morning. When it was over, she looked at me over her reading glasses. Mrs. Crawford, your cognitive function is excellent. Above average for your age group, actually. I'd put you in the superior range for problem solving and verbal recall. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I'll have the formal report ready by Friday. If you need it for legal purposes, it will hold up in court. Superior range. I wanted to frame it. Friday afternoon, Patricia sent a cease and desist letter to Jennifer regarding the defamation. Within 24 hours, every single Facebook post came down, but the damage was already spreading, and Jennifer had one more card to play. Saturday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Crawford? This is David Brennan. I'm an attorney representing your son and daughter-in-law. An attorney. They'd lawyered up. What do you want? I'd like to discuss a resolution to this situation. Something that works for everyone. I'm listening. My clients are prepared to offer you $50,000 for a quitclaim deed to the property. You sign over ownership, the eviction goes away, and everyone moves on. $50,000 for a house worth $475,000. That's less than 10% of the property value. It's a generous offer given the circumstances. My clients have invested significant... No, Mrs. Crawford, I strongly advise you to consider. The answer is no. They can leave voluntarily, or the sheriff can remove them. Those are the options. I hung up. $50,000. They were trying to buy me off, which meant they were scared. Good. But here's the thing about scared people. Sometimes they do stupid things. And Jennifer Crawford? She was about to do something very, very stupid. Patricia called me that evening with an update from the court. The motion to expedite had been granted. Our hearing was set for 3 weeks out. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. Margaret, I need to ask you something. Have you received any threats? Any communications about your mental competency beyond the social media posts? No. Why? Because David Brennan filed a response to our motion. He's claiming you lack the mental capacity to manage your own affairs. He's suggesting the court should appoint a conservator before proceeding with the eviction. A conservator. Someone to make decisions for me. Someone to control my money, my property, my life. Can they do that? They can try. They'd need medical evidence, which they don't have. But if they find doctors willing to testify that you're incompetent, Jennifer's words echoed in my head. We'll tell everyone you're mentally unstable. She wasn't just trying to embarrass me. She was trying to take everything. I stared at the phone, at the wall, at the folder full of documents that proved I owned my own house. This wasn't just about property anymore. This was about my freedom, my autonomy, my right to exist as a person who makes her own choices. And I was not going to let them take that from me. Patricia, I said slowly, I have Dr. Morrison's cognitive assessment. Superior range. Will that be enough? It's a start, but we need more. Then let's get more. 3 weeks until the hearing. 3 weeks to build a case. 3 weeks to prove that I wasn't crazy. I was just a mother who'd finally had enough. And here's what Jennifer didn't know. Here's what none of them knew. I had a door camera. And I'd recorded every single threat she'd made. They wanted to have me declared incompetent. Take away my right to make my own decisions. Put my life in someone else's hands. You know what's terrifying about that? It's not impossible. I've seen it happen. A friend of Dorothy's had it happen to her mother. Some distant nephew showed up with a lawyer, and suddenly this sharp, funny woman couldn't access her own bank account, couldn't sell her own house, couldn't decide where she wanted to live. Jennifer wasn't just fighting to keep a house. She was fighting to erase me as a person. But she made one mistake. She threatened me on camera. Let me back up a week. After the cease and desist went out and the Facebook posts came down, I thought I'd feel better. I didn't. The legal victory was real, but the emotional damage was already done. People I'd known for decades had publicly questioned my sanity. Former neighbors, church acquaintances, women I'd shared recipes with at potlucks. I cried in the shower. I cried in my car in the Safeway parking lot. I cried at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep and the walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in. Dorothy showed up on a Tuesday with 2 suitcases and a reservation confirmation. "Pack your bags," she said. "We're going to Carmel. I can't just leave. The court date is in 3 weeks, and Patricia needs me to. Patricia can email you. Michael and Jennifer can't bother you if they don't know where you are. And you," she pointed at me, "need to stop crying in grocery stores before someone calls a wellness check." I stared at her. "How did you know about that?" "I know everything. Pack. We leave in 2 hours. 4 nights in a bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean. No phone calls except Patricia. No social media. No driving past my own house wondering what they were doing to it. Just Dorothy. Good food. And the sound of waves that didn't care about property deeds or forged signatures. By day 3, I could breathe again. By day 4, I was ready to fight. When we got back to San Jose, Dorothy drove straight to her house instead of my apartment. "What are we doing here?" She smiled. "You'll see." 8 women were sitting in Dorothy's living room when I walked in. My knitting circle. Women I'd known for 15, 20, 25 years. Agnes, who worked as a paralegal before she retired. Susan, whose nephew was a real estate appraiser. Maria, who still had contacts from her journalism days. Linda, Carol, Barbara, Nancy, all of them looking at me like I was a general, returning from battle. "What is this?" Agnes stood up. "This is your war council." Dorothy had told them everything. The eviction, the forged document, the Facebook smear campaign, the conservatorship threat, and every single one of them was furious on my behalf. "What they did to you could happen to any of us," Susan said. "We're not just sitting around waiting for our kids to throw us away." Maria pulled out a notebook. "I still have friends at the local news. If this goes public, Jennifer's career is over." Agnes spread papers across Dorothy's dining table. "I've been reviewing your documents. Patricia's good, but I spotted a few things she might want to know about California adverse possession claims. They might try to argue they've improved the property. Speaking of which," Susan added, "my nephew Kevin can do a formal appraisal. Market value, documented condition. If they're claiming they added value, we prove they didn't." I looked around the room. 8 women, 73 years of combined legal, financial, and media experience. All of them on my side. "Why are you doing this?" Dorothy put her hand on my shoulder. "Because you're one of us. And we don't abandon our own. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I come from a different generation. But right then, standing in that living room, I understood something I'd forgotten during those 3 years with Michael and Jennifer. Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up. The next morning, Agnes and I met with Patricia to go over the documents. Kevin scheduled an appraisal for the following week. Maria started drafting talking points in case we needed media pressure. And I did something I'd been putting off for weeks. I went to see my house. They were both at work, Jennifer in marketing, Michael in some tech job downtown. I knew their schedules from 3 years of living with them. Wednesday at 2 p.m. was the safest time. I parked across the street and just looked at it for a while. The house I'd bought with proceeds from my family home and Richard's life insurance. The house where I'd thought I'd spend my final years, surrounded by family. The house my daughter-in-law had screamed was hers. Then I walked up to the front door. I still had a key. I'd never given it back, and they'd never asked for it. The lock hadn't been changed. I stepped inside and felt like a ghost in my own life. The first thing I noticed was the kitchen. They'd remodeled. New cabinets, new countertops, expensive-looking tile backsplash. None of it approved by me. None of it discussed with me. My house, my property, and they'd ripped out the kitchen I'd designed without even asking. I took photos. Every angle, every detail. The backyard was worse. Richard and I had planted a rose garden the first year we bought the original house. When I moved in with Michael, I'd transplanted some of those bushes, a piece of my old life in my new one. They were gone. all of them, replaced by some modern stone patio that looked like it belonged in a magazine. More photos. I walked through the rest of the house documenting everything. A new bathroom, vanity, different light fixtures. A wall that used to have my family photos now, covered with Jennifer's inspirational quotes. By the time I left, I had 47 photos on my phone and a clear picture of exactly what they'd done. Thousands of dollars in renovations, all without permission, all to a property they didn't own. Kevin's appraisal came in 3 days later, $475,000. The renovations had added some value, sure, but not the $130,000 in improvements Jennifer was apparently planning to claim. Patricia filed the updated documentation with the court. Photos of unauthorized renovations. Appraisal showing actual market value. Bank records showing the irregular, below-market payments they'd made over 3 years. Court date, 2 weeks away. Then everything changed. 1 week before the hearing, I was in my apartment making dinner when I heard a knock. Not pounding like last time. Gentle, almost hesitant. I looked through the peephole. Michael, alone, holding white lilies, my favorite flower. The same ones Richard used to bring me on our anniversary. I didn't want to open the door. Every smart instinct I had said to keep it closed. But this was my son, my only child. The baby I'd held in the hospital 42 years ago. I unlatched the chain, left it half connected, opened the door just enough to see him. Mom, his voice cracked. Please, can we talk? What do you want, Michael? We want, he held up the lilies. Jennifer and I talked. We think maybe we can work this out. You could come back home. We could be a family again. You know that feeling when someone says the words you've been wanting to hear, but something in their voice tells you it's all wrong? That's what I felt. Come back home? Yeah. We formalize things. Put your name on the deed officially. Make it legal. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Come on, Mom. This doesn't have to go to court. I stared at him. At my son. At the man I'd raised alone after his father walked out. The man who'd chosen his wife over his mother without a second thought. So let me understand this. You kicked me out, called me senile, tried to forge documents, threatened to have me declared incompetent, and now you want me to come back and... What? Be grateful? Mom, that was Jennifer, was stressed. And Jennifer. Something moved in the stairwell behind him, a shadow. Then Jennifer stepped out, smooth and polished in her work clothes, her smile as fake as the signature on that forged document. Margaret. She said my name like we were old friends. I know things got heated, but we're family. Surely we can find a way forward that works for everyone. I should have closed the door right then, but I needed to hear it. I needed to know how far she'd go. What exactly are you proposing? Jennifer stepped closer. You drop the eviction. We formalize a care arrangement. You can have your room back, and we'll pay you something reasonable for the inconvenience. And the deed? We'd work that out. Eventually. Her smile tightened. The point is, Margaret, you're 72 years old. Court battles are exhausting, expensive, and honestly, not great for someone your age. All that stress, she tilted her head. It can't be good for your health. I felt the threat underneath her words, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not dropping the eviction. Jennifer's smile disappeared. You've been living in my house without my permission. You forged my signature on a legal document. You told the entire internet I had dementia. And now you want me to pretend none of that happened? We lived there for 3 years. Jennifer's voice rose. We paid for renovations. We maintained the property. You can't just... It's my house, Jennifer. It's always been my house. You're a manipulative old woman. The mask was gone now. Her face twisted with anger. You know what? We tried. We tried to be reasonable. But if you want to play hardball, fine. We'll have you declared incompetent, There it was. Excuse me? I've already talked to 3 doctors. Specialists in elder cognitive decline. They're very interested in your case. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. By the time we're done, no judge in California will let you make your own decisions. We'll take the house. We'll take your savings. We'll put you somewhere nice and quiet where you can't cause any more trouble. Michael grabbed her arm. Jennifer, that's enough. Shut up, Michael. She shook him off. I've been patient. I've been reasonable. But this woman, she pointed at me, is trying to destroy our lives. And I won't let her. I kept my face blank, kept my voice calm. Get out. Both of you. Now. Jennifer laughed. Or what? You'll call security again? Go ahead. It won't change anything. By the time this is over, Margaret, you'll have nothing. No house, no money, no freedom. Just a nice little room in a facility where someone else decides when you eat, when you sleep, when you're allowed to go outside. She turned and walked down the hallway. Michael lingered for a moment, his face pale. Mom, get out. He left. I closed the door, locked it, slid the chain into place. Then I walked to my bookshelf, moved aside a plant, and picked up the small black device I'd installed the week before, my door camera. 12 minutes of crystal clear video and audio. Jennifer threatening to have me declared incompetent. Jennifer threatening to take my house, my money, my freedom. Jennifer describing in detail how she planned to destroy my life. All of it recorded. I called Patricia with shaking hands. They came to my apartment. Jennifer just threatened me with conservatorship. She said she has doctors lined up. She said she's going to take everything. Margaret, slow down. Did anyone else witness this? I smiled for the first time in weeks. My door camera did. I have the whole thing on video. Silence on the line. Then Patricia started laughing. Margaret Crawford. You absolute genius. We spent the next hour going over the footage. Every word, every threat, every admission that they knew the eviction was legitimate and were trying to steal my property through legal manipulation. This changes everything, Patricia said. The conservatorship threat alone is potential elder abuse. Combined with the forgery, the defamation, the harassment, they've handed us the case. Will it hold up in court? California's a 2-party consent state for phone calls, but video in your own home is different. You had every right to record people threatening you at your own door. She paused. Margaret, we don't just have evidence now. We have ammunition. The hearing was 6 days away, and Jennifer had no idea what was coming. I sat in my apartment that night, watching the video over and over, Jennifer's face when she threatened me, Michael's silence when she described taking away my freedom, the way she'd said nice little room in a facility like I was already gone. Some people might have felt scared. Maybe I should have. This woman was trying to destroy my life, and she had money, lawyers, and apparently doctors willing to help her do it. But I wasn't scared. I was done being scared. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a crying wreck in a hotel room, wondering how my life had fallen apart. Now I had an attorney who believed in me. A knitting circle of warriors who refused to let me fight alone. Documentation of every lie they'd told and every crime they'd committed. And I had video proof of Jennifer Crawford threatening to have me institutionalized. She thought she was dealing with a confused old woman, someone she could bully and manipulate and ultimately dispose of. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Court was in 6 days, and I was ready for war. The Santa Clara County Courthouse smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I'd been in courtrooms before, nothing dramatic, just boring stuff like jury duty and a minor traffic dispute back in the 90s. But walking through those doors knowing my entire life was about to be decided by a stranger in a black robe, that was different. You know how in movies, people walk into court looking confident and powerful? That's not how it works. My hands were shaking. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed cement. Patricia had told me what to expect. but knowing and experiencing are two different things. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. I got there at 8:15. Patricia was already waiting outside the courtroom, leather briefcase at her feet, looking like she'd done this 1,000 times, which, honestly, she probably had. Real estate law in Silicon Valley meant dealing with rich people fighting over property worth more than most Americans earn in a lifetime. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I might throw up. That's normal. Just breathe. We have everything we need. Everything we need. The deed proving I owned the house." Dr. Morrison's cognitive assessment showing my mind was sharper than most people half my age. Bank records documenting 3 years of irregular, below-market payments. Photos of unauthorized renovations. The forensic handwriting analysis proving the signature on that care agreement was forged. And the video? Jennifer's face twisted with rage as she threatened to have me institutionalized. Every word captured. Every threat documented. We had everything. But I'd learned by now that having everything didn't always mean winning. At 8:47, the doors at the end of the hallway opened. Michael walked in first. He looked terrible gray circles under his eyes. Rumpled suit, the kind of hollow expression you see on people who haven't slept in weeks. Behind him came Jennifer, and she looked the opposite. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, conservative dress with pearls. She dressed for the judge like she was attending a charity luncheon. Behind them was David Brennan, their attorney. Expensive suit, confident stride, the kind of lawyer who charged $500 an hour and expected to win. Jennifer saw me and smiled. That same cold, victorious smile she'd given me the night I packed my car. She still thought she was going to win. Michael wouldn't look at me. He stared at the floor, at the wall, at anything except his mother's face. 3 months ago, that would have broken my heart. Now it just made me angry. At 9:03, a bailiff called our case number. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling on the walls, fluorescent lights humming overhead, an American flag in the corner, and at the front, elevated, behind a massive desk, sat Judge Martha Hendricks. She had steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Reading glasses perched on her nose, eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of lie and manipulation human beings could invent, no nonsense written across every line of her face. I liked her immediately. Patricia and I sat on the left side. Michael, Jennifer, and Brennan sat on the right. The judge shuffled papers for a moment, then looked up. "This is the matter of Crawford versus Crawford, unlawful detainer action." She glanced at both tables. "I've reviewed the filings. Counsel, let's hear opening statements." Petitioner first. Patricia stood. "Your Honor, this case is straightforward. My client, Margaret Crawford, is the sole legal owner of the property at 4,892 Willow Creek Drive. The deed has been in her name since the property was purchased 5 years ago. No transfer was ever executed. The respondents have been living in her home without a formal lease, paying below market rent on an irregular basis. When Mrs. Crawford requested they vacate, they responded with a forged document, a social media defamation campaign, and threats to have her declared mentally incompetent. Brennan was on his feet before Patricia finished. "Your Honor, the respondents dispute this characterization entirely. While the deed may technically remain in Mrs. Crawford's name, my clients have invested significant resources into the property and have been operating under an informal family arrangement for years. Furthermore, we have serious concerns about Mrs. Crawford's cognitive capacity to manage her own affairs." Judge Hendricks raised an eyebrow. "Concerns based on what, Counselor?" Mrs. Crawford is 72 years old and has exhibited erratic behavior, including filing a police report against her own son for alleged forgery. We believe a competency evaluation may be warranted before proceeding. Patricia didn't miss a beat. "Your Honor, Mrs. Crawford has already undergone a comprehensive cognitive assessment by Dr. Sarah Morrison, a board-certified geriatric specialist. The results are in the court's file. Mrs. Crawford scored in the superior range for her age group. If opposing counsel wishes to challenge her competency, they'll need actual medical evidence, not speculation based on her age. The judge flipped through her papers, found the assessment, read it silently for about 30 seconds. Dr. Morrison's evaluation appears thorough and conclusive. She looked at Brennan. Do you have a physician's report contradicting this assessment? Brennan shifted. We've been in contact with specialists who are willing to. Do you have a report, counselor? Yes or no? Not at this time, Your Honor. Then let's move on. Mrs. Chen, present your evidence. The next hour was systematic destruction. Patricia presented the deed first. Original document. County records confirmation. Title insurance paperwork. 5 years of property tax payments, all from my bank account. The house was mine. There was no ambiguity. Then the bank records. 3 years of payments from Michael and Jennifer. Sometimes $1,000. Sometimes $1,500. Sometimes nothing for months at a time. No lease, no formal agreement. Patricia calculated the fair market rent approximately $4,000 per month and showed that they'd paid roughly $1,800 on average. They essentially received a $130,000 subsidy from my client over 3 years, Patricia said. Housing provided well below market rate in a property they never owned. The photos of renovations came next, side-by-side comparisons. Before, the kitchen I'd helped design. After, Jennifer's modern remodel. Before, my rose garden. After, a stone patio. Before, family photos on the walls. After, inspirational quotes from Pinterest. None of these modifications were authorized by the property owner, Patricia explained. They were made without Mrs. Crawford's knowledge or consent, during a period when she was living in the home as a guest, not as a landlord who had approved tenant improvements. Then, the forged document. Patricia displayed it on the courtroom screen. The family care and property transfer agreement that Jennifer had emailed me, claiming I'd signed it and forgotten. Your Honor, we submitted this document to a forensic handwriting analyst. The expert's conclusion is unambiguous. This signature is a forgery. The letter formations, the pressure patterns, the spacing, none of it matches Mrs. Crawford's known signatures. She held up the expert's report. 12 pages of detailed analysis, side-by-side comparisons of my real signature versus the fake. The San Jose Police Department has been provided with this analysis. The district attorney is reviewing the matter for potential criminal charges. Jennifer's face went pale. Michael looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Brennan stood up. Your Honor, this is a family dispute. My clients maintain that Mrs. Crawford signed this document and simply doesn't remember. Mr. Brennan. Judge Hendricks cut him off. I have a cognitive assessment showing Mrs. Crawford's memory is excellent. I have a forensic analysis showing the signature is forged. Do you have any evidence to suggest the expert is wrong? We believe there may be alternative explanations. Evidence, counselor, not speculation. Brennan sat down. Patricia wasn't done. Finally, Your Honor, I'd like to submit video evidence. This was recorded at Mrs. Crawford's apartment door 1 week ago. The screen flickered, and there was Jennifer, standing in my hallway, her face twisted with rage. By the time we're done, Margaret, you'll have nothing. No house, no money, no freedom. Just a nice little room in a facility where someone else decides when you eat, when you sleep, when you're allowed to go outside. The courtroom went silent. Judge Hendricks watched the entire 12 minutes. Jennifer threatening conservatorship. Jennifer describing how she'd contacted doctors to declare me incompetent. Jennifer's voice dripping with contempt as she mapped out exactly how she planned to steal my autonomy. When it ended, the judge removed her glasses and looked directly at Michael and Jennifer. Let me be very clear about what I just watched. That was a threat, not a disagreement, not a heated family moment, a calculated, deliberate threat to deprive an elderly woman of her legal rights and personal freedom. Jennifer stood up. Your Honor, I was upset. Things were said that I didn't mean. Sit down, Mrs. Crawford. I didn't ask you to speak. Jennifer sat. The judge turned to Michael. Mr. Crawford, did you participate in creating the forged document? Michael's face crumbled. He looked at Jennifer, at Brennan, at the table in front of him, anywhere but at me. Ipe, answer the question. Maybe some small piece of my son was still in there. Maybe the pressure finally cracked something open, or maybe he just realized how much trouble they were actually in. Michael stood up slowly. His hands were shaking. Mom, I'm sorry. 2 words. 3 months too late. But he said them. I should have stood up for you. I was afraid. His voice cracked. I was afraid of losing Jennifer, of my marriage falling apart, of everything. And I stayed silent. And staying silent, that was choosing her. I know that now. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Michael, shut up. Our lawyer is... No. He pulled away from her. No more. He looked at the judge. Then at me. Then back at the judge. We forged that document. Jennifer forged it. I knew about it, and I didn't stop her. And we threatened my mother with conservatorship because we thought we could scare her into backing down. The courtroom went absolutely still. Jennifer's face went from pale to red to something I'd never seen before. Pure, unfiltered rage. You idiot, she hissed. You complete idiot. Mrs. Crawford, control yourself, the judge warned. But Jennifer was beyond control. She turned to Michael with venom in her eyes. Do you have any idea what you just did? We could have won this. We could have. We were never going to win, Jennifer. My mother owns the house. She's always owned the house. And we, he gestured between them, we committed fraud. We threatened an old woman. We tried to steal her home. She was a burden, Jennifer screamed it. Right there in the courtroom. Do you know what it's like living with someone else's mother? 3 years of her cooking and her opinions and her sad little face every time I wanted to do anything in my own. Order. Judge Hendricks slammed her gavel so hard the sound echoed off the walls. One more outburst, Mrs. Crawford, and I will hold you in contempt. Sit down. Now. Jennifer sat. But her eyes, you could see it in her eyes. She knew she'd lost. She knew everything was falling apart. And she hated me for it, with every fiber of her being. The judge took a long breath. Then she spoke. In 23 years on the bench, I have seen a lot of family disputes. Ugly ones. Tragic ones. Cases where everyone involved had some legitimate grievance? She paused. This is not one of those cases. She looked at Michael and Jennifer with undisguised disgust. This is one of the most clear-cut, unlawful detainer actions I have ever seen. The petitioner owns the property. The respondents have no legal claim to it. They have presented forged documents, made threats of elder abuse, and conducted a public defamation campaign against a woman whose only crime was asking for respect in her own home. She picked up her gavel. I am ordering the respondents to vacate the property at 4,892 Willow Creek Drive within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in removal by the sheriff's department. The gavel fell. It sounded like thunder. I am further ordering the respondents to pay Mrs. Crawford's legal fees, in full approximately $18,000, based on the accounting provided. Another slam. And I am formally recommending to the district attorney that criminal charges be pursued for the forged document. This court takes elder abuse seriously, and what I witnessed today comes very close to that line. Final slam. We are adjourned. I sat there for a long moment, not quite believing it was over. 3 months of fighting. 3 months of fear and anger and sleepless nights. And now a judge had looked at everything and said, you win. Patricia touched my arm. Margaret, we did it. Michael was still standing, frozen, like he didn't know what to do next. Jennifer had already gathered her things and stormed toward the door without looking back. Brennan followed her. already on his phone, probably calling someone about the criminal referral. My son turned to face me. Mom, I meant what I said. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but you're right. My voice was steadier than I expected. It doesn't fix anything. Can we talk? Maybe get coffee somewhere? And no, he flinched. Michael, you chose her. You watched me pack my car at midnight. You let her call me senile and crazy and a burden. You knew about the forgery, and you didn't stop it. I stood up. You don't get to apologize your way back into my life in one afternoon. So that's it? We're done? I looked at my son, the baby I'd held, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd broken my heart. I don't know, Michael. I really don't know. I walked past him, toward the courtroom doors, toward Patricia, waiting in the hallway, toward whatever came next. 72 hours. Then the sheriff would remove them. Then the house would be mine again. But here's the thing nobody tells you about winning. It doesn't feel like you expect it to feel. I'd beaten Jennifer in court. I'd gotten my house back. My son had finally admitted the truth, and I felt empty. Patricia was smiling when I reached her. Criminal charges are likely. The DA's office already has the file. Between the forgery and the conservatorship threat on video, Jennifer Crawford is looking at felony charges. How long? Months, probably. These things take time. But Margaret, she put her hand on my shoulder. You won. Not just the eviction. Everything. 72 hours. In 72 hours, Jennifer Crawford would be escorted out of my house by uniformed deputies. In 72 hours, everything she'd threatened and schemed and lied for would disappear. And she had absolutely no idea what was coming after that. 72 hours later, I stood on the sidewalk outside my house and watched the sheriff's deputies supervise the eviction. 2 moving trucks, 6 boxes stacked on the lawn. Jennifer Crawford, in yoga pants and a messy ponytail, directing movers with barely contained fury. And my son, moving mechanically through the front door with a lamp in his hands, looking like a man whose entire world had collapsed. You know what's funny? I thought I'd feel victorious, triumphant, like one of those movie moments where the hero watches the villain get what they deserve and the music swells and everything feels right. That's not how it felt. It felt quiet, almost anticlimactic. 3 months of fighting, and now 2 strangers in uniforms were making sure my daughter-in-law removed her throw pillows from my living room. Sheriff Ramirez walked over to where Patricia and I stood watching. He was maybe 50, with a weathered face and kind eyes. Mrs. Crawford, the property is clear. We've changed the locks. He handed me a set of new keys. The house is yours again. Yours again. Such simple words. I thanked him, took the keys, felt the weight of them in my palm. Jennifer saw me holding them. Our eyes met across the lawn. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me. The deputies tensed, but she stopped about 6 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to stay legal. Happy now? Her voice was ice. This isn't about being happy, Jennifer. Right. This is about punishment. About making sure everyone knows you won. She crossed her arms. Congratulations. You got your house back. You ruined our lives. I hope it was worth it. Patricia stepped forward. Mrs. Crawford, I'd advise you not to. It's fine. I held up my hand. Let her talk. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. You think you're so righteous. The poor old woman who was wronged by her terrible family. But you know what? You were a burden. You were in our space. You watched us like we owed you something every single day. I watched you live in my house rent-free for 3 years. We paid. You paid a fraction of market rent. Irregularly. Without a lease. While I bought groceries and cooked dinners and stayed out of your way, I kept my voice calm. I gave you everything, Jennifer. My home, my savings, my time. And you tried to have me declared incompetent so you could take what was left. She had nothing to say to that. David Brennan appeared behind her, phone in hand. "Jennifer, we should go. The movers are waiting." But Jennifer wasn't done. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You'll die alone. You know. In that big empty house with nobody who cares about you. Michael will never forgive you for this. You'll spend your last years surrounded by nothing but your precious receipts and your pathetic friends." Some people would have flinched. Some people would have felt that blow land. Not me. Not anymore. "I'd rather be alone with my dignity," I said, "than surrounded by people who treat me with contempt." Jennifer's face went blank. She turned and walked away without another word. Michael was loading the last box into the second truck. He saw me watching and set the box down. Walked over slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "Mom, Michael, I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But he swallowed hard. I love you, Mom. I always have. I was just too weak to show it. Some people might have softened, hugged him, said all was forgiven. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't disappear because someone apologizes. The wound doesn't heal just because they say they're sorry. My son had watched me pack my car at midnight. He'd known about the forgery. He'd stood silent while his wife threatened to institutionalize me. Words weren't going to fix that. Maybe someday, Michael, but not today. His face crumpled. "So that's it? You need to live with what you've done. I need time to live with what happened." I paused. "Maybe we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we won't. But right now, I need you to get in that truck and drive away." He stood there for a long moment. Then he nodded, wiped his eyes, and walked back to the moving truck. I watched them drive away. My son and his wife. The people who'd tried to steal everything from me. Gone. Patricia touched my arm. "What do you want to do now?" "Now?" I looked at the house. The house I'd bought. The house I'd lived in. The house I'd been kicked out of and fought to reclaim. Now I want to sell it. The real estate agent was shocked when I called. "You just got it back. Don't you want to move in? It's a beautiful property." "It was a beautiful property," I said. "Now it's just walls and bad memories." We listed it at $475,000. It sold in 2 weeks for $495,000, $20,000 over asking. Silicon Valley housing market. Some tech couple with 2 kids and a dog, eager to start their lives in a house with original hardwood floors and a remodeled kitchen. After paying off the remaining mortgage and Patricia's fees, I cleared $410,000. Enough to start over. Enough to never depend on anyone again. I found my cottage in Santa Cruz 3 weeks later. Walking distance to the beach, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a little garden in the back where I could plant roses again. No mortgage, no strings, just mine. The knitting circle helped me move in. 8 women carrying boxes, arguing about where the couch should go, stocking my kitchen with groceries before I even asked. Dorothy hung the first picture Richard and me on our wedding day and then stood back like she'd accomplished something important. "Welcome home, Margaret. Home." A word I hadn't really understood until I lost it and found it again. The months that followed were quiet. Healing. I joined a pottery class on Tuesday nights. Started volunteering at the Literacy Center downtown, helping adults learn to read. Dorothy convinced me to try community theater, and somehow I ended up with a small role in the spring production, my first time on stage at 73 years old. And then there was Gatsby, a 1-eared orange cat at the Santa Cruz Animal Shelter. Nobody wanted him because he looked damaged. But I took one look at those green eyes and that crooked ear, and I thought, we understand each other. He sleeps on my bed now, follows me from room to room, sits on my lap while I watch Jeopardy every night at 7, just like Richard and I used to do. Meanwhile, Jennifer Crawford's life fell apart. The district attorney's office moved forward with felony forgery charges. Patricia kept me updated, the forensic evidence was overwhelming, and Michael's courtroom confession had eliminated any possible defense. Jennifer's attorney tried to negotiate, but the DA wasn't interested in letting elder fraud slide. The plea deal came through 6 months after the eviction, 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, $18,000 in restitution, every penny of Patricia's fees paid back to me, and a felony conviction on her permanent record. You know what a felony conviction does to a marketing career in Silicon Valley? It ends it. Jennifer was fired within a week of the conviction going public. Her LinkedIn went dark. The networking events dried up. Every job application hit the same wall. Criminal background check failed. Dorothy heard through the grapevine that Jennifer applied at 14 different companies in 3 months. Not a single callback. Pride will cost you everything. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. Jennifer was learning it now. Michael's career stalled too. Not from any legal consequences he'd been smart enough to confess before it got worse, but from the stress. His performance reviews dropped. He missed deadlines. His manager started documenting concerns about focus and reliability. And the marriage? The marriage that was so important he'd chosen it over his own mother? Dorothy's sources said they were fighting constantly, screaming matches, blame games. Jennifer accused Michael of destroying everything with his courtroom confession. Michael accused Jennifer of starting the whole mess with her demands and schemes. They filed for bankruptcy 8 months after the eviction. The legal fees, the restitution, the lost income, none of it was sustainable. Jennifer's sister kicked them out of her guest room after 6 months of temporary living. Last Dorothy heard, they'd moved to a rental in Gilroy. Small, old, roaches in the kitchen. Some people say that's karma. I say it's consequences. Jennifer sent a letter through Patricia about a year after everything ended. Handwritten. 3 pages of careful script explaining how difficult things had become and wondering if maybe I could help with a small loan to get back on our feet. I told Patricia to burn it. Michael showed up at my cottage once. I watched him through the window, standing on my porch with flowers, knocking on the door, waiting. He stayed for about 10 minutes. Then he left. I didn't open the door. Some people might call that cruel. Maybe it is. But I spent 3 years of my life trying to keep the peace, trying not to cause problems, trying to make everyone else comfortable at my own expense. And where did it get me? Alone in a hotel room at midnight, with 2 suitcases and a shattered heart. I don't owe anyone my presence. Not anymore. My 74th birthday was on a Saturday in June. Dorothy organized the party without telling me, showed up at my cottage with streamers and balloons, and ordered me to stay in my bedroom until she was ready. When I came out, there were 20 people in my living room. Knitting circle, pottery class, theater group, literacy center volunteers, people I'd met in the last 18 months of rebuilding my life. Agnes had made a cake. Susan brought champagne. Maria hung a banner that said, "Happy birthday, Margaret," in gold letters, the same colors I'd used for Jennifer's birthday, back when I thought decorating would make someone love me. We ate and laughed and told stories. Gatsby weaved between legs, accepting treats from everyone. The sun set over the ocean, visible through my window, turning everything gold. At the end of the night, Dorothy raised her glass. "To Margaret," she said, "who taught us that it's never too late to choose yourself." 20 glasses lifted. 20 voices echoed the toast. I looked around the room, at the faces, at the cottage that was mine, at the life I'd built from the ashes of the one I'd lost. 3 years ago, I'd been a woman who gave everything to her family and got nothing in return. Now, I was a woman with friends, purpose, a cat, and a home by the ocean. I'd fought for every piece of it, earned every moment of peace. When they asked me to make a wish before blowing out the candles, I didn't wish for my son to come back. I didn't wish for an apology that would fix everything. I didn't wish for the family I thought I wanted. I wished for more days like this one. Days of friendship, days of purpose, days of being exactly who I am, without apology. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for permission to be themselves, waiting for someone to tell them they matter, waiting for the family they were born into to finally treat them right. I'm done waiting. Respect isn't negotiable. Dignity isn't earned by suffering. And the people who love you don't make you feel like a burden. If that ending felt good, hit subscribe. I've got more stories like this. Because here's the thing. I was 72 years old when my life fell apart, and I was 74 when I realized that the best years weren't behind me. They were just beginning.